The Sick Podcast. I've never quite done a show like this before, but there's a first time for everything. I'm lying down. I'm in bed on my Essentia mattress. Why? Because the Tampa Bay Lightning have put the Montreal Canadiens and everyone cheering for the Canadiens to sleep. Joining me right now from the Montreal Gazette, Stu Cowan. How you doing, bud?
I'm doing well. You look pretty comfy there, Tony.
I am very, very comfortable. I have to get you here, my friend, at 2760 Daniel Johnson in Laval at the Essentia showroom. The show, of course, the Sick Podcast is brought to you by Essentia, the world's only natural memory foam mattress. Go to myessentia.com/sickpod and use code SICKPOD for a free pillow with your purchase. Essentia Beyond Organic Sleep. And I talked about the Lightning putting the Canadiens to sleep. Stu, everyone thought Game 3, or everyone in Montreal, or the most optimist of Canadiens fans thought, this is it. The Canadiens are back at home. Here's their chance to get back in the series. I don't know about you, but 3.5 minutes into the game, I knew it was over.
Yep, that's what I thought. And that's what I wrote also in my post-game report. Down 2-0 means you got to score at least 3 goals on Andrei Vasilevskiy, and the odds of that were very slim. They did score 3 goals. Still wasn't enough. Carey Price let in 5. And the 6th goal is an empty netter. So, Tampa's just such a good team, and the Canadiens have beaten themselves in many ways. I mean, Tampa's every time they make a mistake, Tampa puts it in the back of the net. Early goal last night, and then Eric Staal takes a penalty for shooting the puck over the glass. Power play goal, 2-0. It really was game over right then. I mean, the Canadiens tried to fight back. Hard enough fighting back from a 1-goal deficit early in the game, but 2 goals, the game was over at that point. I mean, Canadiens got within the 4-2 or whatever, but then more mistakes, a bad line change for a goal, a giveaway by Gustafsson at center ice. It got ugly, and Tampa's too good. You can't make mistakes against Tampa like that. And the Canadiens are no match for Tampa Bay, and Carey Price has been no match for Andrei Vasilevskiy. That's basically the story of the series so far.
Before we get to that, Stu, listen, I know the whole adage that if it ain't broke, don't fix it and all that stuff, right? So I can understand why the Canadiens stuck with the same lineup that they've had over the past couple of games, the lineup that's brought them success and all that stuff. Having said that, there has to be at one point where you look at it and you say, okay, we've had a winning lineup, but how about the importance of getting fresh legs into the lineup? How about the importance of getting a hard-hitting Romanov? How about the importance of getting a more offensive Tatar? And up until last night, the Canadiens were always right. And we asking for Tatar and or Romanov were always wrong. But I think it's safe to say, and we don't know if the Canadiens would have won last night with those guys, but we know that they lost without those guys. Stu, I believe last night they got it wrong. Scoring 2 goals in the first 2 games, they needed to add guys to the lineup who can add some offense. I think Tatar was one of those guys. And they needed a guy who could add energy, and I believe that guy was Romanov. So even though the Canadiens have got it right most of the time these playoffs, I believe last night they got it wrong.
I agree with you. Thomas Tatar, Philip Deneau, and Brendan Gallagher were the Canadiens' best line for 2 years. They're one of the best lines in the NHL 5-on-5. Yes, Tatar has struggled in the playoffs. He struggled when he was in Vegas also. But you got to mix stuff up at some point. You're down 2-0, as you said, 2 goals in the first 2 games. Thomas Tatar is a proven goal scorer. Arturi Lehkonen works his butt off. He doesn't really have any hands to finish. And I just think it was a good time when you're down 2-0. You put the Tatar back in the lineup. Hopefully you get a bit of an offensive spark. There's no doubt he's going to be motivated. He doesn't have a contract for next season. He's obviously not happy sitting watching these games. And with Romanov, Merrill and Gustafsson on the point, it reminds me of the sort of stubbornness that Marc Bergevin has. And if you go back to 2017 when they lost to the Rangers, he acquired Dwight King at the trade deadline. And they kept Dwight King in the lineup every game, and he was horrible. He was slow. He slowed down what was an energy 4th line. I remember the last game of Madison Square Garden, walking through the press box and walking past Torrey Mitchell, and I'm thinking, you really want Dwight King in the lineup over Torrey Mitchell? The guy who was, Torrey had speed and had scored a goal in that series. But it seems with Bergevin, when he makes these trade deadline moves, he's going to stick with those guys. And Gustafsson and Merrill remind me of that. And I don't know what it is with Romanov. It's very bizarre. You'd think they would want this kid to be getting this playoff experience. The other younger kids on the team have been playing really, really well. But for whatever reason, they just keep putting Romanov and Gustafsson out there. Gustafsson played 16 minutes last night. mean, that's too much ice time for Gustafsson.
Yeah.
And at least with Romanov, and even Kulak, I thought Romanov and Kulak were a good third pair this season when they were together. Put them out 8 minutes, 10 minutes to give the big four guys a bit of a rest. But Gustafsson and Merrill, and even in the third period, Ducharme had them both on the ice together at one point, and I was going, "Oh my God, what's going on here?" But it's now you're down 3-0. Will they make changes the next game? We asked Dominic Ducharme this morning, and he said it's possible, but it's almost too late now. I mean, there's no way the Canadiens are going to win 4 straight games against Tampa Bay. I don't think any team in the NHL could win 4 straight games against Tampa Bay.
No, it's over. Listen, if I were a betting man, and you can place your bets on MyBookie, go to mybookie.ag/the Sick Podcast and use code SickPicks for a 50% deposit bonus. Bet, win, get paid. When I made the suggestions that I put Tatar in the lineup and Romanov in the lineup, never did I think the Canadiens were going to do it, but I did it anyway. But if I were a betting man, I would bet Romanov's going to be in for Gustafsson for game 4, because it's going to be a way for them to say, okay, we got him in. And it's also going to be a way for Romanov to get at least one game in the Stanley Cup final experience, because Romanov has a future in Montreal. Gustafsson, I'd be very surprised.
I wouldn't bet on that.
You wouldn't, eh?
Because of what I mentioned before of Marc Bergevin's stubbornness. I mean, if he does that, he's sort of admitting that maybe they were wrong, right? And Marc Bergevin doesn't like to do that. I mean, Marc Bergevin deserves all kinds of credit for building the team that has got to the Stanley Cup final. The offseason moves he made were great, but I think one of the downfalls with Marc Bergevin has been his stubbornness. And, and I think that they're just going to put the same lineup out there. Maybe Tatar gets in, but I'd be surprised if Romanov gets in. And at this point, it's almost not fair to the kid. I mean, he's been sitting out so long. Now you're going to throw him into the elimination game, and if he makes a mistake, cost him the game and the series is over, is that going to hurt him moving forward? I really find it hard to understand with the whole Romanov situation. Now, here's a guy they brought into the bubble last year to get experience, even though he couldn't play. Played well this season, played 54 games, I think it was. And then all of a sudden in the playoffs, he's not good enough to play. I find it bizarre, and especially against Tampa. I mean, he's a physical guy. And you look at what Tampa's defense is doing. Look at Sergachev. He's throwing out. And, Tampa has those 6 defense. They just roll them out there, and they're all big and they're all physical. And Merrill's not really physical. Gustafsson's not physical at all. And I think the Canadiens need that physical aspect against a team like Tampa, and I think they've really missed it the first 3 games.
In Montreal right now, you can't criticize Carey Price, because if you do, you're going to get destroyed by everyone because of, I mean, let's face it, he's the biggest reason why they are where they are in the playoffs out of all the players on the team. So I want to preface a couple of things here. I want to preface everything I'm going to say by saying the Canadiens are in the final, and Carey Price has been absolutely amazing in the first 3 rounds. I want to also tell you that the Tampa Bay Lightning are much, much better than the Montreal Canadiens. They're deeper at every single scoring position, and of course, they know how to win Stanley Cups. They did last year. But I also want to tell you this. Despite all of that, somewhere along the line here in the final, and I think it happened in game 1, Carey Price lost his mojo. You could tell me all you want that Tampa Bay's better than Montreal. I agree. You could tell me that it's almost too much to ask for Price to beat the Lightning, and I somewhat agree. But you cannot tell me that this is the same Carey Price in the final. At some point, he lost his mojo. I don't know when it was. Maybe it was during game 1 when he realized that these guys are a different animal. They just seem to score at will against him. And that look, Kelly Rudy showed yesterday. He showed video replays of his lateral movements. I don't know how many times he lost his net. I don't know how many times he stumbled. And on several occasions, even when he made the save, very unsure of himself and even lucky at times. Do you agree with this?
Yep. I mean, I've tweeted many times, watching Carey Price, especially when you're at the game, I was last night as opposed to on TV, early in the game, you can always tell if he's on or not, just by the way he slides across his crease. And when he's on, he's so smooth, and everything's smooth, and he knows his angles, and every save looks easy. And you can tell that usually early in the game. And I tweeted last night early in the game, he's not on his game. As you say, he was sliding out of his crease, like pucks were hitting him. We didn't know where they were. He was fighting the puck, the best way to describe it. And it was obvious right from the start of the game. And this is the Carey Price that we've seen the last 3 or 4 seasons in the regular season, just as inconsistent. And in this playoff run up until this point, he's been incredibly consistent. He's been fantastic. I mean, Canes aren't in the Stanley Cup final without Carey Price. You go back to the first round series against Toronto when they were down 3-1. One of those overtime games they won. They were outshot 13-2 when they won.
Yeah,
so
right.
they're not. Habs have no hope of being in the Stanley Cup final without Carey Price. But now that they're there, excuse me, that inconsistency that we've seen the last 3 or 4 seasons has popped up its head. And the Canes were 20 games into the playoffs, and that's a long run. He's played every game, and that inconsistency is there. So it's not that shocking that this has happened. As I said, he was able to hold it on for now, but I think Andrei Vasilevskiy owns Carey Price, and he owns the Canadiens. He's won 11 straight games against the Canadiens. He has a save percentage of like .955 during that.
It's unbelievable.
And it's in the Canadiens' heads. Maybe it's in Carey Price's head. Maybe that's part of what he is. But, I mean, after the first 3 games of this series, there's no doubt who the better team is, and there's no doubt who the better goalie is. Andrei Vasilevskiy is a better goalie than Carey Price. And the Canadiens, last night they were able to beat them 3 times, and that wasn't enough because Carey Price let in 5 goals. So we're now seeing regular season Carey Price in the playoffs instead of playoff Carey Price.
It's the Sick Podcast. Marinaro, along with Stu Cowan of the Montreal Gazette, and the Montreal Canadiens had me drinking myself to sleep last night. I'll tell you that right now. On a good old Cherry River seltzer, only 90 calories, natural flavors, no preservatives. Now available in Quebec grocery stores and the beer store. And here I am at Essentia on Daniel Johnson in Laval, basically still sleeping. The Lightning have put the Canadiens to sleep. There was a moment in the game yesterday, Stu, and for me, that picture stayed in my head the entire night. Now, you were at the game, so you were there. I was watching it on television. But when the anthem was being played, they showed Carey Price, and they zoomed in on him. And, he broke out a sweat, and I would imagine he broke out a sweat because of several. That's not my point. My point is, when they zoomed in on him, he didn't have that look that he had in the first 3 rounds. It's like he had a look of concern. And I know, listen, there's no way I can put myself in his head, so there's no way that I know what he's thinking. But it almost seems like he doesn't believe versus Tampa. You know what I mean?
Well, all hockey players and all pro athletes will talk about confidence and how easy it can be to lose it and how hard it can be to get it back. And I think he's lost his confidence, or as you said earlier, his mojo. Up until this point, I think he was like Patrick Roy was in 93. Like, guys, don't worry, they're not going to beat me. We're going to win. And that seems to be lost. I mean, I didn't see that last night. I was at the game, so I didn't see the close-up of him during the anthem. But as I said early in the game, I'm watching from the press box, and I said, he's not on. Like, he's uncomfortable in his net. That's probably the best way to describe when.
Yes, you're right.
He's really comfortable. Everything's easy. And when he's not on his game, it's uncomfortable. As you said, sliding out of his crease and then looking behind him and pucks hitting him that he didn't know where they were. We've seen that in the regular season with Carey Price the last few years. We haven't seen it in the playoffs up until this point. So, unfortunately, regular season Carey Price showed up in the Stanley Cup final. And again, I mean, people are going to dump on Carey Price, I'm sure, today, but they're not in the Stanley Cup final without Carey Price. And he's not the only guy who's not playing well. I mean, there's other guys on the team. You can't blame everything on Carey Price. But as I said, Vasilevskiy Vasilevskiy's an amazing. Vasilevskiy's like Patrick Roy was back when the Canadiens won the Cup in '93. It's like he let in a couple of goals that I know on Twitter some people were saying a little soft. I thought the Suzuki goal was a sneaky little shot. It was a really good goal, I thought, by Suzuki. He caught him sort of off balance a little bit. But Vasilevskiy and he's got to be intimidating because when you look at Vasilevskiy, you can hardly see the net. He's just the size of him or the equipment or whatever it is. He's just a big guy, and
he's huge.
And I think they're intimidated. I think the Canes are intimidated by him, to be honest.
Listen, Stu, I thought he gave up 2 bad goals. I thought he should have had both of them. But here's the deal, and I know once again it's a very difficult situation. The Canadiens don't have a Nikita Kucherov. And as good as any of their goal scorers are, they're not Kucherov, and the Canadiens don't have a Braden Point as good as Suzuki is, and he's very good, by the way. He's not Braden Point, not just yet, and Shea Weber obviously is not Victor Hedman and all that stuff. Tampa Bay's better. The thing is this, is that Vasilevsky has the luxury of being able to let in 2 bad goals per game, and his team can still win. Price doesn't have that luxury, and it may be too much, and it may be unfair, but it is what it is. The 2 goals that Price gave up to start the game, you could tell me all you want he was screened on the first one, and you could tell me all you want that the second one was 99 miles per hour. Stu, he can't let those goals in.
No, and the one name you didn't mention in Tampa is Steven Stamkos. I mean, what other team in the NHL is Steven Stamkos a second-line player? Nowhere. I mean, Steven, that just shows you the depth that this team has. And, down 2-0, I'm in the press box saying there's no way they're going to win this game. Like, there's no way they're scoring 3 goals on Vasilevsky. And I'm sure Canadian players on the bench have that going in their head, too. Like, they're going, oh, man, we're done. They never admit that publicly, but it's just human nature. You're down 2-0. You're playing against the defending Stanley Cup champions with a goalie who has, up to that point, has a 10-0 record against you in the last 10 games. It's got to seep into your head a little bit that, man, we're screwed here. Like we're done.
And you know what, Stu?
3 minutes into the game.
And that's just it for me.
It took all the anticipation. The first Stanley Cup final game in Montreal since 1993. The first Stanley Cup final game ever at the Bell Center. The excitement, the crowd outside, and then 3 minutes in, boom, it's gone, and they never got it back. And
that's just it for me. They could probably still even beat Tampa Bay in a game where he gives it 2 bad goals, but not when it's 3.5 minutes into the game, and now Tampa Bay's got a 2-0 lead. Anyway, that picture of him during the anthem where he just looked unsure of himself, I got to speak to Excellent Photo. Maybe they have a picture of it, Stu. Centrally located close to downtown shopping and universities in Montreal. They ship to all of Canada. Professional staff at the store and online to help you choose the gear you really need. It's excellentphoto.ca. All right. Now, we talked about Carey Price, and we talked about, him not being at his best, and we talked about how good Tampa Bay is. There's other guys that are clearly not at their best. Tyler Toffoli and Josh Anderson have done nothing in the Stanley Cup final. Nothing.
Josh Anderson's thrown some body checks. That's about it. Running around. They haven't scored. Brendan Gallagher hasn't scored. Dano isn't there to score goals. It was his first goal in 20 playoff games last night.
Yeah.
And back to what we were talking about before with Thomas Tatar. On a team that can't score, you have a guy here who's at the beginning of almost every NHL season, Thomas Tatar is going to score 20 goals. It's a given. He's proven it. Yes, he hasn't played well in the playoffs, but
that's true.
But you put him. You need something. You need somebody who can score when they get an opportunity. Canes have too many guys who work hard and can't score.
Yeah,
Terry Lekkonen's like that. Jake Evans is like that. They got too many guys that you need those guys on a team. You need those workhorses, those guys that go in the dirty areas and that.
Yeah.
You also need some guys who can score.
In the playoffs, Gallagher's been like that. In the playoffs, he's been like that. He's got what, a couple of goals or whatever it is. But look, Tatar, you're right that Tatar hasn't had great playoffs. All that is true. It's also true that he was, I believe, their 4th best point getter this year and their 6th best scorer. It's also true that he was their 1st best scorer last year and their 1st best point getter. It's also true that he was their 3rd best scorer the year before that and their 2nd best point getter. And his contract is up. Everyone knows he's not going to be back with the Montreal Canadiens next year. But, he might have something to prove. Now, someone said to me, well, you can't play Tatar because he knows he won't be back with the Canadiens, so he's not going to play to get injured. He knows he's done. Okay, great point. Why? Can we guarantee that Armia is going to be back? Can we guarantee that Danault's going to be back? Can we guarantee that Merrill's going to be back? Can we guarantee that Gustafsson's going to be back? All their contracts are up at the end of the year. Can we guarantee that Perry's going to be back? Can we guarantee that Stahl's going to be back? All their contracts are up at the end of the year.
Yeah.
They're playing.
Yep. And Tatar he's a free agent, unrestricted free agent. He doesn't want to go into the off season with the thing being, you didn't play in the playoffs. I mean, if he gets in there, he's not going to play not to get hurt. I mean, when you play not to get hurt, that's when you get hurt.
Yeah.
He's going to go out there and he's going to have something to prove. He's a proud guy, and that line, as I mentioned, with Danault, Gallagher, and Tatar has been their best line for 2 years. Maybe one of the reasons Gallagher isn't scoring is that chemistry is lost playing with somebody else on that wing. And the other thing, Thomas Tatar, when you're around him, we haven't been around the players this year because we can't get in the locker room, but in previous seasons, He's one of the most likable athletes I've ever been around. His teammates absolutely love him. He's one of those guys. He's always in a good mood. He's always smiling. He's always happy. He's always really polite with everybody he deals with. His teammates love him, and it's got to be the teammates got to be looking at him sitting there and wondering, Gallagher and Danault especially, like, man, this is our guy. Like, we've been, have we not done enough over the last 2 seasons to prove what a good line we can be? And you don't want to put him back with us. And then that's got to be going through Danault and Gallagher's minds. And as I mentioned, they've struggled. Gallagher hasn't been scoring. Danault hasn't been scoring. And maybe part of that is they don't have that comfort level, that chemistry, that natural chemistry that they've developed with Tatar on their wing. And as I mentioned, Arturi Lehkonen, God bless him. He works his butt off. He works as hard as he can. He's fearless. He's not a big guy, but he can't score. And
some are going to say he scored the game winner versus Vegas, and I get that, but it's not because he scored the game winner versus Vegas that he's going to score every game and that you have to keep him in the lineup every game. I mean,
let's goal scorer. I mean,
he was a healthy scratch on several occasions during the season. Lehkonen was, right?
Yep, he was, and Tatar's a proven goal scorer. Lekkonen's not a proven goal scorer. I mean, it's as simple as that. I mean, that was a great goal he scored in the overtime. But I really wonder if how much Tatar not being in the lineup has had an impact on Danault and Gallagher and on the team in general. As I said, he's one of the most popular guys in that locker room. Every guy in that room, I'm sure, loves Thomas Tatar, and it's got to be hard for him, obviously, sitting out. And some of his teammates, it might be hard on them also to see him sitting out. And they know, before he was made a healthy scratch for the first game, I guess it was in the Toronto series. I remember he did a Zoom interview and he was talking about, it was one of the Toronto games because they were facing elimination. And he had said how he was hoping this wouldn't be his last game with the Canadiens, and talked about how much him and Gallagher and Danault had become friends on and off the ice. And he didn't want it to be, and then he didn't even get in the lineup. Like, he had already played his last game, it turns out, unless he gets into the Stanley Cup semi-final series. So again, I think, team chemistry is a big thing. And I think with him being out, okay, you sat him out for a while, fine, okay, players go in, players go to the lineup. But to have him out for such an extended period while the team is struggling to score, to me, it doesn't make sense.
Stu, I'd be willing to bet that if you talk to Gallagher or Danault off the record and ask them if they want Tatar back on their line, I would think they would say yes. Once again, they were together
1,000%.
for several seasons. A shout out to sportbuffshop.com for all of your officially licensed sports apparel and more. Use code 615 for 15% off on all of their items, and you can get any jersey, any kind of apparel, any sport, they'll have it for you. All right, okay. The top 4 on defense, they gave a lot of they administered a lot of punishment to players they went up against in round 1, round 2, round 3. They're still laying some lumber. There's still a few slashes. There's still a few cross checks, but the Tampa Bay Lightning are not getting intimidated. They're not getting physically beat up the way other teams did against the Canadiens. And I think this is another big factor in this series.
Without a doubt. I mean, you don't win the Stanley Cup by being intimidated. And last season, Julien Brisebois, GM of the Lightning, realized that his team needed more grit. We talked already about all the Kucherov and Stamkos and Hedman and all the superstars they have, but they needed grit, and he went out and got grit. I mean, they're a solid top to bottom team. I mean, Pat Maroon, what a big physical presence he is. We talk about Josh Anderson. He's been running around hitting guys, but he sort of stopped hitting guys after Maroon had a little chat with him and looked like, you're going to run around like that, then we're going to go. And Tampa's just such a good team, top to bottom. I mean, they are. People are saying, they're playing however many millions over the salary cap. Well, blame the NHL. Don't blame the Lightning. I thought Julien Brisebois should have been the GM of the year for his ability to keep this team together. And they're over the cap. Well, he didn't break any rules. So, I thought he should have been GM of the year instead of Lou Lamoriello. But they have it all. They have skill. They have the best goalie in the league. They have grit. They have size. You talk about the Canadiens' big 4 on defense, or top 4, the Clydesdales, as Luke Richardson called them. The Habs have 4 guys like that. The Lightning have 6.
Why don't we talk about the fact that Sergachev out of the lineup?
Sergachev is a third pairing defenseman on the Lightning.
Yeah.
I mean, that's
so is Savard.
Yeah, that just shows you how the Canadiens' third pairing is Merrill and Gustafsson. There you go.
Yeah, and they're able to keep Kucherov out of the lineup and they comfortably make the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, remove a player of Kucherov's caliber on the Canadiens out of their lineup, they don't make the playoffs. And anyway, all right.
Well, the comparable would be Carey Price, right? Carey Price is their big star. So if you take Carey Price out of the Canadiens lineup this year, they probably don't make the playoffs. I mean, Jake Allen.
Would you, because at one point the cameras were on Jake Allen, would you have made a goalie change last night at some point to try and spark the team?
No, I Carey and Dominic Ducharme was asked that question this morning about, will he start Jake Allen for Game 4, and he said no. Carey Price is their guy.
No, Jake Allen.
You're not gonna. I mean, you're not gonna, especially not at home. You're not gonna pull Carey Price at home. I mean, he's your guy. You go with him. You're gonna win or you're gonna lose.
Not with 5 years remaining on his contract at 10.5 either.
It's not gonna end that way. Carey Price is the guy, and Carey Price, as I said, the Habs are not in the Stanley Cup final without Carey Price. He got them here. Unfortunately, as I mentioned, regular season Carey Price showed up in the Stanley Cup final instead of the playoff Price that we had seen. And again, as I said, it's like 20 games into the playoffs, and you go through the regular season, Carey Price is like this, right? Up and down, up and down, and now we're seeing that in the playoffs. And if he had this down earlier, the Habs aren't in the final. So there's
with Stu Cowan of the Montreal Gazette, I'm Marinero. It's the Sick Podcast. You can follow us on the iHeartRadio app and on all social media platforms. I'm going to call Sophistication because of their event rentals, live music, DJs, sound systems, tents, chairs, tables, decor, lighting, photo booth, TV screens at 570-5770. That's at 514-570-5770. I'm going to call them because I think my Italian national team is going to win the Euro 2020, okay? I'm not going to call them for the Montreal Canadiens, but I have to ask you this. You said it. I mean, I think it's pretty clear by now. The Tampa Bay Lightning are going to win the Cup. Is the party going to happen for them, in your opinion, on Monday night in Montreal, or is it going to happen Wednesday in front of their fans?
I think it happens Monday night. I think the Lightning guys have 2 days now to be in Montreal, and I think being on the road helps them in this situation. With that, they're together. They're not going home to their families, or there's no distractions. They're together. I imagine, they can't go out to bars or restaurants or anything, but I'm sure they can go for walks there. It's just going to be 2 days of bonding, and they're going to want to win. People say, they're going to go home and win at home. They don't care. They want to win it as soon as possible. As they always say, the fourth win is the hardest. You can't monkey around and say, we're not going to play hard in Game 4 because we want to go home and win at home. They just want to win it. I can't see the Canadiens beating them in Game 4.
And think about this: Julien Brisebois, Matthew Darche, the goalie coach, Yanni Gourde.
They had 6 guys who grew up in Quebec on their team. Alex Killorn was born.
Think about all these guys.
Yep.
And how bad they'd want to win it in Montreal. Think about that, right?
Exactly. I wrote a column this week about Mikhail Sergachev's billet parents from Windsor, who he invited to come see Games 3 and 4, got them tickets. They're here. They're
amazing.
And I would imagine the Lightning. Well, I don't know why with COVID restrictions. I'm not sure how they're going to be, what they can do with getting family here. I guess they can't, but I mean they'll be ready to. They're going to go back home if they win Game 4. The Lightning will be on a plane. They'll go back home, and there'll be a huge party in Tampa, the Riverwalk area there in Tampa, which is gorgeous. And the thing with Tampa, we're talking about the being over the salary cap.
Yeah,
anybody who's been to Tampa, and I've been there quite a few times covering the Canadiens, you understand why guys never want to leave. Why Vincent never wanted to leave. Why Stamkos never wanted to leave. Why all these guys don't want to leave. It's gorgeous there. That Riverwalk area, the area around the arena is beautiful. The weather's beautiful. It's a great hockey market.
The Cavalier's still there.
It's a great and coaching his kids and it's a great hockey market. When you go there, the atmosphere outside Amalie Arena is better than any arena I've been to. The atmosphere outside, they have picnic tables set up, they have bands, they have bars. It's just fun. And then the atmosphere inside the rink is fun also. And the last time I was there a couple of seasons ago, the sports bar there, Hat Tricks, is a real popular place. Yeah. And it might have changed now that the Tom Brady arrived and the Buccaneers won the Super Bowl. But back then, lightning stuff's everywhere. Like the boats, the river, it's all lightning flags.
So that's called what, the River Walk?
Yeah, it's absolutely. If you Google it, it's absolutely gorgeous. But It's become a hockey city. It's like they love the Lightning down there, and you understand why guys don't want to leave. And that's why some guys probably sign there for maybe less than they would get elsewhere because they just don't want to leave. Steven Stamkos, example, he didn't want to leave Tampa. All that talk about where he's going to go back to Toronto, he's going to go here. When you've been to Tampa, you would understand why a hockey player would never want to leave there.
I could already see it now. The Tampa Bay Lightning players, before leaving for Tampa Bay, going to Quebec grocery stores, going to the beer store, and stocking up on Cherry River to bring with them for at the river walk there, the hard seltzer, only 90 calories, natural flavors, and no preservatives, and the party going on in Tampa. Hey, Stu, you know what? I'm going to agree with you. I think the Tampa Bay Lightning are going to win the Stanley Cup on Monday night in Montreal. And Montreal Canadiens fans, you've said you've wanted to see the Cup. You haven't seen it since 1993. I think you're going to see it on Monday night. Unfortunately, it's going to be the other guys. And until then, the Tampa Bay Lightning have put the Montreal Canadiens to sleep. Stu Cowan of the Montreal Gazette, the Canadiens have put me to sleep too. I can't believe that they never woke up for this series. Here I am at Essentia on Daniel Johnson in Laval in their showroom on one of their beautiful Essentia mattresses and my Essentia pillow. Stu Cowan, like the Canadiens, I'm going to sleep. Ciao, bud.
Sweet dreams, Tony.
Thank you.